Yes, I think if I was to look at, let's break the two parts out. So if I was to look at, let's say, top line or bottom line, we have gone out and said that in half one, on account of COVID, our top line and bottom line have been roughly about 5% of the company's total overall results. Right? So 95% of the balance is what the company has been able to do despite COVID. So that's number one. Number two, yes, cost control, of course. I mean, I think with COVID, why only supply? Every other company, every other industry has gone through a period where they're beginning to reimagine costs. A lot of these costs are not just because of activity not happening, but because we are figuring out how to do these more digitally as against more physically. So yes, I mean, if it's a culmination of both, it's a culmination of the ability to keep costs in control, and it's a culmination of trying to drive revenue growth with products that make sense at the point in time.
So if COVID would have not happened, what would have happened to the earnings trajectory?
So we had already guided, Nikunj, if you remember, we had already guided that the earnings trajectory would perhaps have gone up to the 22% odd mark. So with COVID, of course, we are higher, but that not all of it is because of COVID per se. It's also because of the way that we have managed our business during this time. So a lot of our spend base has got reimagined. Right, we are trying to do virtual cycle meetings for our medical reps. We're trying to do virtual audits at our facilities and plants, right? And it's also because we can't travel, but it's also because we are trying to see what could be the next wave of reimagination of how we can conduct our business. So digital has made a difference, and I think that's the uptick we are seeing. But initially, we had guided for about 22 odd percent of EBITDA.
Let me ask you a big picture question. And when I interact with some of your shareholders, they have a following template, Mr. Vora, which is that COVID is a respiratory disease, and a respiratory disease needs an inhaler, which means that the inhaler market, where Cipla has a large leadership, has a very large, when I say scope, I don't mean it in a good manner, but it has a very large potential to grow for a pharma company. So is the assumption true that COVID is a respiratory disease and this is something which is going to aid Cipla's respiratory business?
So I think, Nikunj, it aids people who have asthma who are afflicted with COVID, unfortunately. But for a regular patient who has COVID, we haven't really seen cases of inhaler use go up substantially because of that. But it does help those patients who are asthmatic or those patients who are borderline respiratory challenged, right? They are the people who begin to see inhaler sales expand. So on a YTD basis, we haven't seen abnormal growth on our inhaler franchise. But yes, respiratory is a COVID disease. But if you look at most ways of treating it, there is only a very small overlap with the inhaler universe. So that is one thing I would say. The second is, I think what is required in times like today, Nikunj, is a lot more of agility. Because I think the way we have looked at our therapies in the last 6 months or 9 months, there has been a huge change. Therapies, for example, as people stay at home, you would realize that while COVID has struck, the regular flu that comes has actually come down considerably. And so there is a changing mix of therapies and diseases. At the same time, we have realized that conditions like urology, which are largely an old people's disease, has led to less people going to meet urologists at the same time. I think what is most important for any company, including us like Cipla, is just the ability to cope with the agility the market offers. Right? So if the market is now offering a situation where there are more patients for COVID or there are more patients in certain conditions, that we also structure our response accordingly. So I think our story in the last 6 to 9 months has just been the ability of using the adversity that people are going through, using the adversity that the society at large is going through, and bringing product offerings that are helping that. And in lies, that links back with our revenue, links back with how we do as a company. So I think there's been a shift and a churn in the market. And some part of COVID will always stay. My belief is the disease may become endemic to a certain extent. The vaccines would help tremendously. But I think there is a new moving target of how diseases and therapies in India will evolve. And most companies like us must adjust to it.
The US business has become a sizable business for you. You're clocking north of about $140 million, which means about $600 million for the year. Will it be hard for me to imagine if I say that Cipla's US business will be $1 billion business very soon and it will be less than 3 years?
Well, we are certainly aiming towards that. I don't know whether the $1 billion is a target that we want to give out, Nikunj, but certainly the US is an area of focus. And as you rightly said, I think this is one territory which will benefit tremendously with our inhaler pipeline. So yes, we are looking at the US quite significantly. I think we're clocking at about $145 million a quarter. That translates roughly into a 550 to 600 million business range. If in the next 3 years we can get 2 or 3 of our inhalers to launch and some of the other products to launch, I think that number, and most analysts are also projecting the same, would not be too far for us to achieve.
Now, Mr. Vora, while the mantra of Cipla is to have a purpose-driven growth with care is the centerpiece, you also believe in a simple philosophy of creating brands which have a domination and relevance. Domination will give you margins, relevance will give you top line. So for next 3 years, what do you think the dominant portfolio for Cipla would be, and what do you think the relevant part for Cipla would be?
So Nikunj, great question. I'd like to maybe answer by saying that our legacy brands would always continue to be dominant. And if you look at those legacy brands, a lot of them are in the respiratory segment. A lot of them are now in the cardiology segment within India. And respiratory globally, we sell similar products, whether they are India or they are other parts of the world. And they will continue to be dominant for us. So I would look at 3 themes that would guide Cipla going forward over the next 3 to 5 year period. The first is a theme which is the Uber theme around illness to wellness. I think what COVID has taught most companies, including us, is that you just can't be a partner in when somebody needs the medicines. You've got to be a partner with patients a lot earlier in the campaign, and you've got to continue to be partners with them even after they are past the disease. So this whole thing of the shift is a shift that most companies would make, including ours, which is to offer solutions for wellness and not only illness. And I think within this is a consumer healthcare franchise that is scaling up. But also within this is several other items, including supporting patients with their own data. And if I was to call the servicization of businesses, but it goes beyond that. It's regular vitamins, it's minerals, and everything in the patient journey is what we would like to do. So we will see a large share of our revenues coming from that particular one segment over the next 3 to 5 years. And I'm talking about incremental revenues. The second is our aspiration to be the lung leader of the world, to be the leader who supplies the maximum number of medicines to the lung. And I think that's our second big theme that we're working on. We're currently number 2 in the world. We're hoping to be number 1. Number 1 right now is GSK. And I think it will flow from our ability to just get more products out into the marketplace. And the third theme that we are working on is a theme that we believe is very important to society, and that's a theme around antimicrobial research and the ability to bring products in that space. So it is quite sad that COVID is one resistant sort of an infection, if you think of it. But there are several other bacterial and non-bacterial infections, antifungal infections, which are becoming resistant. And for that family which contracts, an infection which is resistant to treat, it is terrible because the patient can't get cured. He's under a large number of drugs, hoping that one of them would work. And so at Cipla, we've decided that we will also focus our energy and resources and effort into trying to bring more medicines out that could be that would not be resistant to a fungal infection, that would not be resistant to a bacterial or a viral infection. So those are the 3 big areas that Cipla would look at. And our bigger brands, our legacy brands, will start getting bigger in each of these 3 areas.
Thank you for that brilliant explanation. I'll talk about the entire China plus one strategy, especially for pharma companies and what is happening in the API front. What is your understanding? Will India gain, and will Cipla benefit if APIs move to India?
I think the first thing, Nikunj, I think there are two separate aspects about this whole China piece that we keep hearing about. The first is an innate nature of companies to try and keep things in their control. Sometime back, I think as everyone began to expand globally, this began to move the China way, right? Because people had lots of global aspirations. They were focusing on growth in the front end, not necessarily growth in their back end operations. And I think we've reached a point in time now, because of the fragility across the global supply chains, that everyone wants it back in their control today. Right? So it could be in China, it could also be in Europe, right? But most companies now want to bring a lot of that within their own supply chain. And I think that's the thing that would, and I see this as something that is going to benefit companies, whether you locate your manufacturing in India or you locate it in the US. I think the fact that it's part of your chain is something that will benefit all companies, because it improves your cost position. At the same time, it gives you your supply chain a lot of resilience. I think that's one aspect of the whole supply chain mapping. And I think China is kind of central to that, because a lot of this moved out to China because of scale and because of cost in the earlier stage. So I see that move is very beneficial. The second move is really one, Nikunj, which is about where will manufacturing sit, right? And I think at some point in time, it was okay for manufacturing to sit concentrated in centers and not close to the market. And I think we're now seeing a theme where, because innovation is, okay, the future of what we are trying to do, whether it's pharma or anything else, is that innovation will be more personalized. Innovation will be more customized, right? So even in pharmaceuticals now, there is a drug that works on some people, doesn't work on anything, on many others. So it's becoming very targeted. So if innovation is happening closer to the customers, I think manufacturing will also begin to shift there. So categories of drugs are different across the world and how they're sold. Innovation is going to be more centric to people, and therefore manufacturing will also begin to shift to the big market. So I think these are the two trends where people historically had huge manufacturing in, let's say, China or other centers of the world. They're beginning to A, internalize it into their own chain, and B, locate manufacturing closer to markets for both resilience and also to capture the effects of innovation. I think both ways companies benefit. I think overall the pharma sector will rely roughly about 30 or 35% of its chain still comes from China. I expect this to go down over a period of time into more internalized manufacturing to something like 15 to 20%.
What are the big trends in the domestic market? With Cipla, I always share with our viewers that don't look at Cipla and compare Cipla and other pharma companies, because every pharma company gets a different kind of a revenue from domestic market and from the US market, and that's Cipla for you. It is not completely focused on US market, but your Indian pharma market is growing in double digit. Are these growth rates here to stay?
So I think they are here to stay, Nikunj. I think India will become, in my opinion, the Indian patient, the Indian consumer will become a consumer who is willing to look at more wellness for themselves. This is a new, we have 1.4 billion people in India now. Each one of them is now at a stage in their healthcare journey where they've suddenly realized, COVID or otherwise, that health is wealth. Just, we say, "Jaan hai to jahan hai." So I think this particular terminology will begin to, people will begin to imbibe this. And whether it is Ayushman Bharat or it is private insurance that people are taking, I think the quest is for India to be healthier. In this new quest for India to be healthier, we will see a ratio of growth, which will probably continue to be in the low double-digit growth. Going forward on a sustainable basis of 4 to 5 years. It will be coming through volumes in the interiors and healthcare penetration in the interior. But it will also come because people have insurance to afford cancer care. People have insurance to afford different kinds of care that they earlier could not do. So I see a shift in categories. I think cardiology, diabetology will continue to be large categories. I think the burden of asthma and COPD will continue to be big because India is a large country. We have issues with pollution. And so I think there will be a huge shift. The way we knew our market may perhaps not be the same, going forward, but definitely the double-digit growths are here to stay.
Is it a green light for your Goa plant now from the US FDA standpoint?
So the US FDA has not come to audit, Nikunj, and I think we are in touch with the FDA. We have replied to the US FDA that we are ready to welcome them for an audit. But it now depends on when the FDA deems the right time to come audit, as well as they have been in touch with us regarding the work and the progress at our Goa facility.
How exactly do you see the semi-regulated or the emerging market or the semi-regulated business moving? This again has been a very strong standpoint for Cipla, both on the generic side and also on the respiratory side.
So Nikunj, the semi-regulated, could you just qualify that a bit more so that my answer can be more specific?